This conference will now be recorded.
Well, happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to session 2 of our first series called Predictably Unpredictable. We are so excited you decided to spend some time with us tonight. For those of you I haven't had an opportunity to meet, my name is Scott Fussell, and I'm the Director of Education for CSL Management. I'm also the host of our House and Home series. I'm a Beta Theta Pi from Middle Tennessee State, where I had an absolutely life-changing fraternity experience, and that continues today, and that's really why I continue to do the work I do for the folks I do it for, with the folks I do it with, and just why we continue to give back to this wonderful thing called fraternity. So really grateful you could be with us tonight and decided to spend some time with us. With me, as always, is Christina Kinzer. She's going to be managing our chat conversation tonight. We will have everybody in a listen-only mode so we can manage the background noise. So if you have a question, please hop into the chat and enter it there. And we would love to get to those questions at the end of the session. If something pops up and it's kind of urgent, we'll try to address that during the session. But for the most part, we're going to save most of our questions and answers for the end of the session. So if you'll use the chat feature tonight with your questions, we will get to them in the Q&A session a little bit later in the evening. So before we get into the content, I do want to say thank you by showing up tonight. Man, you could have been anywhere in the world tonight. You chose to be with us. And what that reveals to us about you is you care deeply about this community. You care deeply about this movement. You care deeply about these facilities, and you care deeply about the students who call them home. So for the work that you are doing and the work that you will continue to do and do in the future, you need to know how grateful we are for your commitment to this community and to your organization. We are so grateful you're with us tonight and appreciate you, everything that you're doing tonight and going forward. So, what do we want you to get out of tonight? So we really want you, as always, to leave these sessions feeling connected, confident, and compelled. Tonight specifically, though, we want you to leave here with some increased awareness in terms of what is happening on our campuses. And we specifically want to talk about recruitment a little bit later in the evening, because man, recruitment is going to look a lot different this year than it has at any other time in our existence, probably. So we want to dive into both of those things tonight. We want you to leave here with some actionable steps so you leave here reminded and ready. And what do I mean by that? Well, we want you to leave here reminded in the fact that you are not in this alone. None of us have ever been through a pandemic while we're trying to manage fraternity and sorority housing. So we are all in this together, and none of us know as much as all of us. So we've got to lean into each other and lean into community right now more so than any other time in our existence. So we want you to leave here tonight reminded of the fact that you are not in this alone, and we want you to leave here ready. If you can leave tonight's session with 2 or 3 new tactics and strategies, or maybe an action plan or two that allows you to feel like you're a little bit more ready to take on the fall than you were before you came in, that's a gigantic win for us. So here's the newsflash. For those of you who have been sleeping under a rock the last 6 months, change is coming. Change is coming. Change is already here, let's be honest. And whether that change is coming from your local authorities or state or maybe federal, a lot of what we're going to be working with or dealing with is the change that we're seeing at the campus level. So we are going to see and feel that the second we move back onto campus, if we're not already feeling it. So we want to do everything that we can tonight to help you prepare for at least a couple of pieces of that. And we'll do the same thing throughout the rest of our series here with the House and Home series up until move-in day. So here's what you can expect out tonight. We're going to give you a summary of some of what we're hearing from our campuses and what's happening at the local level. We're going to share a summary of those pieces, and we're going to offer up some operational recommendations, some ideas for you to consider implementing with your own chapter house. That's purely at the facility level. I'll eventually get that out of my mouth. And then we know, as I mentioned earlier, recruitment's going to look completely different than anything we've ever seen before. So we want you to leave here with some really strong ideas, with some recommendations, some strategies and tactics you can put into place as you are kind of rolling out your growth strategy, because we can't do what we do without strong recruitment efforts, and this year is no exception. So we are super lucky that we've got some really wonderful resources on the line tonight to talk us through resources and recommendations in terms of recruitment and retention. So with that being said, let me share with you a little bit about our panel tonight. We are super excited. We've got Woody Ratterman back with us tonight. He's our managing partner here at CSL. Chapter brother of mine, also a Beta Theta Pi from Middle Tennessee State. Super excited to have Woody back. Woody, thanks for making some time tonight. And we also have our featured friends tonight is Josh Arendi and Ellen Chestnut from Fired Up and Technify. So they're going to be diving into the recruitment piece a little bit later, and we're just thrilled that those three folks are going to be sharing with us tonight, and are really grateful that they decided to spend some time tonight. Ellen, Woody, Josh, thanks so much and welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk at a very high level. What are we hearing at the campus level? I reached out to some campus professionals, some friends of mine who work either in a classroom, either they're a professor or they're a fraternity sorority advisor, and I just asked them some really simple questions. Some questions specifically about what our facilities are going to look like this fall. But I really wanted to know at a high level, man, what can we do as a fraternity sorority community? What can we do to be a really powerful partner as we prepare for this fall? And I was really taken aback by, frankly, some of the simplicity of their recommendations. And I just want to share 5 or 6 of the themes that came out of that conversation or those mini conversations. First thing I heard was, we should expect guidelines, not mandates, but they really need our support in helping make those guidelines come to life. So that's a pretty simple one. The university does not have, nor do they don't have the manpower, nor do they have the desire to try to police a phone book's worth of mandates in terms of what's happening in our facilities. But they are going to have some pretty plain guidelines that are going to be driven a lot by local, state, federal, and CDC guidelines, and they just need our help making those come to life in our chapter houses. The second theme that popped up was be nimble. And I had a couple of different Greek advisors, fraternity sorority advisors, share with me this idea of being nimble. Everything is changing. We're all seeing this every single week, whether it's sometimes it's things are changing every day, other times it's every week, but certainly things are changing rapidly. So they encouraged us to be nimble and to be willing to be nimble with them. One of the things that was really interesting, I had that one of the FSAs shared with me was talking about how much she was valuing younger advisors and volunteers right now. So there are folks like Woody and me who have been volunteering and doing fraternity for 20 or 25 years, and we sometimes are a little change averse because we feel like we know how this works and let's just do it the way we've always done it. But younger volunteers are much more willing to embrace change and much more willing to see things a little bit differently because they haven't either developed habits or bad habits at this point. So one FSA shared with me, she said, one of the really interesting things that one of the young advisors came to her and said, please tell me we're not going to be doing recruitment in the chapter houses this fall, which if I had that shared with me, I would be blown away if somebody came and shared that with me. But she was thinking, man, I can't imagine going back and talking to the members that live in our house and their families and saying, oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're only going to have 1,000 people come through our house multiple times the next 2 weeks. She couldn't even imagine trying to share that story with her parents. So the idea of having recruitment virtually was not a big deal to a younger advisor, but to somebody like me who only knows it one way, a little bit of a foreign thought. So it's going to require folks like me and folks who are of my generation. We're going to have to be nimble. We're going to have to be open to some of these new ideas that our younger counterparts are probably ahead of the game on. So be nimble. The third thing that was shared with me was do the right thing. Do the right thing. A lot of folks are having some heartburn about wearing a mask right now, or potentially helping with some of the cleaning cleaning chores or cleaning practices around the house, some of the high touch areas. Or maybe we're worried about, you've got some heartburn about social distancing. Well, I had one Greek advisor tell me, she's like, if they have some heartburn about this, please remind them that 50% of normal is still a hell of a lot better than 10 solid weeks with your parents. So 50% of normal is way better than 10 weeks with your parents. And while I was sort of offended by that, because I really want to believe that our daughter still really loves to spend time with us, I got it. So real talk for him was a real truth to me. And so again, 50% of the normal is way better than 10 weeks with your parents. So just do the right thing. That's one of the best ways we can be a great partner in this process going forward. And then the last couple things that they shared is communicate. That's going to be, we were on our webinar a couple of days ago, and one of the people we were facilitating with, she's like, "Yeah, I've got this broken record slide, and it's communicate, because it's like a broken record. We say communicate on every one of our webinars, but what they want to hear from you at the campus level is they need our help. They need to hear what we're challenged by. They need to hear how we're reacting to some of the changes. They want to help us. They need us to be successful. They want to help us be successful, but they can't be an active participant in that game if we're not helping them understand what we're challenged by. So the other piece that they talked about in terms of communication is let's just real talk here. We have hundreds of unregistered social events every single year. That's just a fact. We can't do that anymore. They have got to know where we're having an event, when it's happening, and they need desperately to know who's coming and going in those events. So communicating and helping them with contact tracing is going to be a big, big deal. So when we're talking about communicating, we're not just talking about, hey, help me out here. There is some health and safety reasons why we've got to be better communicators with our campus leaders going forward. Last two things I'll share with you, and then we'll get into some of the more granular pieces, is we were told, yeah, we really need everybody to be patient. We need some grace here. Everybody wants their answers right now. We're all starving for answers. I get it. We are too at CSL. People at the local level, they are giving us information as quickly as they get it. They're not trying to withhold anything. They just don't have it yet. So it's been really nice. I think a lot of us have started to feel better about over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've started to see some of these plans come out from our campuses. You'll continue to see the steady rollout, but they need us to be patient. And if we don't get the answer we want as quickly as we want it, we have to extend a little bit of grace there and be patient. Last thing I'll share with you is they need us to care enough to lead. They need us to care enough to lead. So what do I mean by that? Well, one FSA was telling me that they need our members to care enough about their brothers and their sisters and their house director, maybe the staff and their professors, to be inconvenienced a little bit. They got to care about people outside their 2-foot bubble. Yeah, it's a little bit of an inconvenience to wear a mask. It's a little bit of an inconvenience to have to help with the cleaning rotation of the high touch areas. But man, we need you to care enough about the people around you to be inconvenienced a little bit and to be okay with that. The other thing another story I heard from a friend of mine who's a professor at one of our schools here in Indiana. He shared that people at the campus level, the staff members, the faculty members, I got to be honest, he's like, they're not real thrilled about going back this fall. There's a lot of fear with the professors across the country in terms of going back this fall. So I'm like, tell me a little bit about that. And he talks to everybody at his university, and he's well connected with professors from across the country. And the fear on from their chair is real. And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have COVID by October. I'm pretty convinced of that. And I'm like, well, okay, well, talk to me. I'm going to be talking to a lot of fraternity and sorority leaders tomorrow night. So tell me, how can we be a partner in this process? What can we do to help? And these were his exact words. And I want to encourage you to turn your volume up a little bit and get a pen handy, because you're going to want to write this down. He just says to me, if you want to help, tell Johnny Frat Boy, if he comes to my classroom, to please wear a mask. Tell him to please wear a mask. And if he sees somebody that doesn't have one on, ask them why they don't have one on. So again, when we talk about caring enough to lead, we've got to do that. And they're not asking for us to pass out hand sanitizer at every classroom door across the campus. We just have to do very simple things like doing the right thing and caring more about the people next to us than we do about ourselves, and being okay being inconvenienced a little bit. So again, I want to encourage your members to care enough to lead and to lead by caring. Care enough to lead and lead by caring. So let's dive into some of the more granular pieces of what we're hearing at the campus level. And I'm going to turn this part over to Woody and ask him to walk through some of what we should expect, some ideas that we could incorporate, and some things we definitely need to be doing from a strategic perspective as we prepare for the fall. Go ahead, Woody.
Thanks, Scott. You able to hear me okay?
I hear you great. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So a couple of things. We're going to start at a high level here, and we are starting to get more and more clarity every day related to what the university's plans are going to be. At this standpoint, most that are coming back and where your common campuses are, or I'd say your bigger campuses, they are wanting and realize that our students want an in-person experience. So they're coming through and offering what they feel like, and I think is a reasonable compromise to welcome students back in a modified standpoint. Some are, and it's very important that you're aware, some of the campuses are actually starting a little early. We're not going to have a fall break. We're going to have a longer winter break so that during those high flu season times, we're not coming back to campus and working or assisting on the spread, right? So we even just heard, I think, an update today from the University of Virginia and others. That is, as we continue to see more rolling out, we are seeing more and more of those that are adopting this plan of not leaving campus throughout the semester, longer winter break, and coming back a little later in the spring and hopefully mitigating the spread. We're also starting to hear, and we've had, to Scott's point, he's had conversations, we've had several specific university webinars for fraternity and sorority life offices across the country. And we are eager and we're excited to see that we're going to have more and more direct, to Scott's point again, on the guidelines or recommendations from our fraternity and sorority life offices any day now. If you've not already heard it, one of our friends out at Oklahoma State, Ivel, who I think is on the call tonight, shared what Oklahoma State's plan were and what the resources are. So very, very soon, and I would say within days, if not no more than weeks, you will see more direct guidance on your campus from the fraternity and sorority life offices. They're going to also be sharing quarantine and isolation plans. We have seen a lot of schedule release as it relates to what the academic schedule is going to look like, but there's still a little bit of ambiguity as it relates to the testing that might be taking place on campus, the health services that may be provided, what they will be able to do to help in quarantine and isolation. But they're getting close, and we're seeing more directives on that. And we know with the fraternity and sorority life offices that we have spoken to, it's good to hear that some may be successful and some may not, but they're certainly advocating as best as possible for those fraternity and sorority life students that are living in chapter houses to have the same opportunity at some of the quarantine and isolation areas that they may be setting up on campus. Food service, this is when I'm speaking here, I'm speaking about universities, not necessarily what they're going to be coming to you for in terms of recommendations and guidelines. We'll get there in a minute. I'm just sharing you what universities are doing. On the food service piece, it's basically allotted to go. They're going to have limited dining facilities related to sitting there and actually eating the meal. They're going to provide the meals in to-go boxes and have you take it out of the building, hopefully either back to your dorm or outside if the weather is nice. A big key is online does not necessarily mean no services on campus, right? Again, if you're on one of those campuses where they said they're going completely online this fall, it's very important that you're talking to the university, the fraternity sorority life office, and getting absolute clarity what that means, because they may be offering their residence halls, they may be offering their dining halls, they may be offering other services on campus. They may not just be holding classes in person. Most everybody is coming out and wanting to, and what we have seen, and when I say most everybody, it's within our universe. I want to be careful on that. We do span around 150 campuses right now, but we're probably 25, 30 campuses in that we're really getting any direct information on right now as we continue to comb through the information. But what we're seeing is very consistent is we don't want visitors. They're not having visitors coming to the residence hall. It's only going to be staff and the people that live in. They are also wanting or going to be communicating back to fraternities and sororities, hopefully the same type of visitor policy, the same type of idea as it relates to events at the facility, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how you might be able to help and assist both with limited visitors, limited events, and if you do have people at your house, and the contact tracing. And then we are hearing more and more that the universities themselves are trying to put in measures related to additional cleaning. So we fully suspect they're going to want to know more on what we're doing on the cleaning front. But the good thing about it, to some of the things that Scott was alluding to earlier, and Scott, you can go ahead to the next slide, is that they're embracing crowdsourcing, if you will, in terms of what can they help and provide where the residents themselves can do some of that high touch cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day if they're able to help and willing to help. So now we'll move into a little bit more what we're hearing about what they're going to want to hear from you and what that may look like and what you need to be prepared to provide to the university here in pretty short order. They're going to want to know about your move in and move out process. They're going to want you to share how you're going to hopefully affect on the move-in process, where we have ample social distancing. We don't have a high density of people at the house at one time. And then they're going to hear if you do have to shut down, or if the university shuts down and it's across the board, how that move-out process will be. They're going to want to know your cleaning measures. They're going to be encouraging that you have professional cleaning if you don't. And then they're going to want to know what you're doing potentially to help have more frequency of the cleaning of the high touch areas, whether that's involving members or using, as we have talked about, if you've been on any of our other webinars, working with your cleaning companies, whereby you're taking time from certain services like vacuuming or dusting and diverting that over to high touch cleaning. They're going to want to see more about the plan if you do have a positive diagnosis. They're just, again, they understand, and I think certainly appreciate the fact that every facility is different, everyone's financial situation is different, but what they want to know and what they want to see is that we're at least giving some thought and we have some type of contingency as best as possible if we do get a positive diagnosis. Are you able to isolate in the house? Are you offering any alternative type housing? Obviously, some of the universities that we've talked to that have come out and stated that they will be able to provide on-campus housing for isolation or quarantine of fraternities and sororities, we've certainly told them we'll expect every fraternity and sorority to want to take advantage of that, and that's a great thing. But do you have an alternative? Some of the ideas that we've seen, those with the financial means to either go ahead and rent a one-bedroom apartment with a bathroom and just have it sitting empty for the year, to already negotiating potential rates with hotels and things of that nature. Are you going to be asking members to leave, which again, that's kind of been the standard industry response that we have seen, that if we don't have to isolate or quarantine the house, that would be good. But if they want to or need to, do we have an option? And if not, what can we do from an alternative standpoint? And they're going to want to know more on the cleaning measures as well, and what you've got going and working on that piece as it relates to if there's a positive diagnosis. Have you identified somebody that can come in and do some type of higher level of disinfectant cleaning, if you will? And then, as we've talked about, the visitors. They're going to want to know what you're doing about visitors, who you're allowing to come in, and how you're going to manage that process. So now we're going to take it down to actual ideas and recommendations. And this is based off of our work and what we're hearing directly. You know, if you think about the university environment as a whole, you obviously have the powers to be at the top, the board of trustees, those who are making some of the global recommendations, your residence halls, your health and wellness on campus, and all the different experts. But we've also spent time with the fraternity and sorority life advisors across the country and trying to dig a little bit different on what they're looking at and what they are trying to do to help formulate and support you guys when the fall comes out, but then also what they're hoping to hear from you as you finalize your plans. So one of the things and ideas to consider, we have talked ad nauseum a little bit in the industry about a wellness pledge, right? We've heard from our legal counsel, at least on some of the recommendations of trying not to modify leases right now. But if you want to have some type of policy or some type of wellness pledge that members coming back, they're saying, hey, we're going to try to do some of the things that Scott has mentioned to earlier in terms of practicing social distancing and wearing a mask would be great. But we've had universities, Purdue being one, that are going to create their own and ask the students as a whole, whether they're fraternity and sorority, men and women or not, to sign such a pledge. The welcome packets and what we're seeing on the residence hall, now the big thing is everybody's going to get their own kind of PPE packet coming back to campus with maybe a branded mask, hand sanitizer, things of that nature. Something maybe for you to consider. We've talked about having disposable masks, gloves, other things available at the house if someone does not have one or needs one, but that's not a bad idea to maybe have a welcome kit that already has some of that stuff for them. The interesting concept that we've seen that some universities, and Scott and I were talking about this, and again, showing our age, even for us as we continue to get better at webinars, and you're probably seeing my video right now is sputtering. That's why I'm on my phone, because we still have technology challenges as we continue to figure out the world that is webinars and all the advancements that are there. But to do a video is very easy, and probably working with our chapter members and leadership, you could probably do an instructional video or some type of welcome video as fast or as easy as trying to write out a 15-page memo of all the expectations and what they're going to be walking into and seeing. We have seen that universities are developing some of these, and even to some are considering some type of requirement that everybody coming back to campus has watched it and signed off on it. Thought it was an interesting concept, not necessarily from a mandating viewing piece, but as Scott mentioned, what can we do to lead and what can we do to provide and be a source of encouragement and provide some instructions to our members of how they should be navigating on campus in a COVID-19 environment. Scott, let's go to the next slide. So now, again, going down in some different pieces that we should be providing in a written format, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but we want to make sure, and what we should be doing with the university right now in response to the information that you'll be seeing coming out, and it's basically everything that I'm about to go over in some form or fashion you've probably heard or seen, but it's also important to state that it is also all the stuff that our fraternity and sorority life offices have probably seen, and the early packets that we've been had an opportunity to review, because some of the universities we weren't allowed to share them, but did give us a sneak peek in preparing for this to have some type of indication of what they're going to be asking of you. This is what some of the things, it's very important to note on these slides that they're going to want to see in some time a written format. But what we've always stated from the beginning as we've started this series and as we've had the opportunity to participate in the panels for many of the industry webinars out there is we want to collaborate, communicate, and innovate, right? And this is a time really as an industry, but it's the same with our universities and what we can do. Josh and his team put out that great article early on in how fraternities and sororities can help save higher education. And this is just as we're doing our part on the housing and our members and the advisors are doing on the undergraduate experience themselves, this is our time to shine and really innovate on that. Another helpful hint that we would give to you is engage your students. We don't say that, we have not said this enough, and we want to say this more and more moving forward, is engage the student leaders in the process as you're coming up with recommendations, as you're coming up with any type of wellness pledge or policies or social distancing guidelines or anything within the house itself. We know that we're going to get more buy-in, more participation from our members, out of house and in house, when they have had some opportunity to participate in the process. So we just want to make that point clear that we really encourage you, instead of just saying, hey guys, this is how it's going to be, invite them in on the front end so that they are a part of the process. And we will learn tremendously from them as well as we're putting it together. In writing, documenting our move in and move out plans start to finish. Again, we are doing one tomorrow with our house directors talking about the move-in process. So feel free to join in for that and be able to, it will provide you, if you don't already have one. We know we've been moving in members for decades, but it will give you some of the ideas and thoughts that we've come up with and working with our clients related to modifying the move-in process. But they want to know also creating your quarantine plan. If you have a diagnosed member, how are you going to deal with them? Are they going to be able to isolate? If not, what alternatives do you have? Have you thought this process through and being able to support it, how you will communicate, how things will be cleaned in that process? Again, I know this is not new information to many of us, but this is the actual information that we're getting back from universities that they're going to want to actually hear and see from you. They want to know that you're going to be able to prepared and be able to abide by CDC and other government recommendations and guidelines. Again, as it relates to social distancing, furniture layout, our PPE, our hand sanitizer, signage. I know that many of our organizations we're starting to see are rolling out even branded signage for you. We know that many of our industry partners, like our kitchen management companies, are providing and helping participating in the signage. The CDC has already created signage that you can actually go onto their site and just print and take for your liking and post it as you please. But they want to see and they want to hear in some form or fashion of what you have done as a housing corporation to be able to, as best as possible for your facility, to abide by these recommendations and guidelines. Scott, let's go to the next. So couple of things that we're wanting to make sure that you understand too as you're developing this and looking at and putting these plans together is use available resources to hopefully, again, going back to the process of leading and helping to train the students. So anything that you can put in your plan that says, hey, when our members came for move-in, we provided guidelines of our policies and procedures. We may have put a video together, or at the first chapter meeting, we're going to go through what it means as our organization to be good stewards as it relates to the pandemic, but also what is related to the house. They want to understand and verify your kitchen management partners' plans or your staff plans. So they're going to really want to know what you have prepared for food service and how you're going to deal with food service throughout the fall semester. They're going to want you to present it in writing. That is one of the things that's almost been universal to this point. As it relates to just a sidebar onto this, as it relates to mandated occupancy reductions or mandated, to Scott's point, of things that you need to do or not do, I think most have understood that their ability to govern or to hold anyone accountable to some of it is a daunting task, and one that they're not, from a liability standpoint too, that they're not going to want to take on. So we've not seen any huge pieces of information related to forcing your hands one way or the other because they may be reducing in their residence halls. But we do know we've seen one university that has come out and said, hey, we're not necessarily telling you to reduce occupancy, but we're not going to support any room that has more than 2 people living in it. Now, they have that particular university, everybody's on a university land lease, so they have some ability for teeth to enforce that, but that is only one of many that we've talked to and we've heard from that have given any acknowledgement that they're doing something to that extreme as it comes to occupancy within a bedroom. They're going to want to understand and want to make sure that you have developed a communication plan for all the different elements that we're talking about for the move-in process, for the changes in operations because of COVID-19 on the food service or anything operational, what your communication will look like if there is an outbreak. Those are the 3 big areas that we have seen so far coming from the universities as potential requests from you in writing. And then take advantage, one of the last recommendations that we would have in putting this plan together is take advantage of an opportunity to sell the story, right? We are taking extraordinary measures. And when we say we, you on this phone are doing the heavy lifting for a lot of this as volunteers in your national organizations to create an incredibly safe environment, hopefully for your students or for your members, their children to live in. So take an opportunity to highlight that and to share that story with the legal disclaimer. Remember from our legal webinars to this point, if you put something in writing and you're saying you're going to do it, make dang sure that you're going to be able to do it because it could come back to bite us. Scott, next slide.
Awesome. All right, Woody, thanks for going through all that with us. It's huge and a ton to cover right there. So one of the other things we know that's going to be significantly different from anything we've experienced previously is recruitment, and along the same lines, retention. So we know that there's it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than to acquire a new one. So there's almost like a couple of different recruitment opportunities here. We've got to recruit new members, but we also, in many cases, are going to be having to recruit the ones we already have to stay with us. So for that conversation, I want to bring in our friends, Josh and Ellen. So appreciate you guys being with us tonight. Thanks so much for carving out some time. We appreciate everything that you've done to help the industry kind of prepare for this fall, because I know the target has been moving constantly. But I just wanted to throw a few questions at you that we're hearing folks speak to out in the industry, and wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share with everybody what you're seeing at a global level, and then kind of dive into some of the more granular pieces as well. So I'm just going to rapid fire these questions at you, and you share with us as much as you want. So first off, what exactly are you guys hearing from universities? What kind of trends are you seeing present themselves? Has there been a peak or a decrease in interest level? And then if you could talk a little bit about online or traditional recruitment, what those pieces are look like, that would be a really wonderful thing for our folks to hear. Josh?
Yeah, I'm actually going to defer to Ellen. I think we both have a lot to say on it, but I'd love to hear her
Awesome.
voice first.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I'll try to speak mostly from just the women's groups, but I do have some insight too on some of the men's recruitment pieces that we see coming in from our, clients that are using our technologies. I would say early on in that May, early June timeframe, the interest levels from potential new members was really high, or it was and is still really high. They are looking for something to kind of be a part of, that belonging sense. They're needing that. And so we are certainly seeing registration numbers into our technology being pretty consistent from last year and the year before. Now, again, some of our registrations haven't even opened yet because those campuses are waiting for a decision from the university, and then they're planning to communicate what that plan looks like before they even open registration. So some of your campuses, even the ones I saw kind of come in here today on the chat, haven't even opened up their recruitment registration, which is probably about a month and sometimes even about 6 weeks late. And so that communication piece is really important to continue to keep potential members engaged. So I would say for those of you that have campuses where registration is open, there's a form or an interest form out there maybe, start communicating with those potential new members right away, or encouraging your teams to do that. Again, Josh, I love this phrase that you mentioned a couple months ago. There's nothing wrong with meeting a friend and gaining a friend. And so that is not against any NPC rule, that is against any other barrier. It is okay to start that outreach. I would say from the university side, what we're starting to hear is more and more virtual plans. I think our Panhellenic recruitments especially, we've got a list of about 80 campuses already who have some intention to go, I would say partially or mostly virtual, meaning that either round 1 and 2 are virtual with an in-person 3 and 4 round, or round 1, 2, and 3 are all virtual with a preference round in person. And that seems to be the trend that is happening on most of the campuses that we're seeing that kind of attract those, 500 plus potential new members. That doesn't mean some of those smaller campuses aren't seeing the virtual aspect. They certainly are as well. And especially in some of those, bigger city campuses too, those virtual recruitment is a thing. So I want to just kind of tee us up to say that we cannot expect any type of normalcy or any type of in-person, fully in-person recruitment. And I think the biggest thing there is to get that into your recruitment chair's head. They have to know that they need to start planning now for virtual recruitment. I'll kind of stop there. I have more to share, but Josh, I'll kind of let you maybe trickle in if you have some other insight on this, what you're hearing from universities.
Yeah, so the first thing I want everyone to hear is if you're in a role working or volunteering with your organization, and your primary role is facility management on the board, the housing corporation or house board, and traditionally you aren't elbows deep in recruitment, or maybe you don't even touch it. This year, we need your help. I need you to hear that you are on the recruitment team this year, because everybody's on the recruitment team. It is that important, all hands on deck. So please, this absolutely pertains to everybody, regardless of the role you would traditionally have. In the chat window, I've posted a link for everybody. This is a blog from the Fired Up website that'll give you a better idea of what sorority recruitment will look like in 2020. And it's a free resource. Feel free to use it and share it as much as you'd like. It'll reinforce some of the things that Ellen has already shared with you, but deep dive a little bit more. I'll share a couple more resources like that with you as we're kind of moving through this evening. The only other thing I wanted to add is I think there's wisdom in the crowd. And so you probably don't even need me to teach you this. So I'm going to actually ask everyone to participate, and let's just do a quick activity if we could. Would you all go to the chat window for me real quick? And I'm going to ask you to type in one of three options. Okay, so speaking specifically about your campus or council's recruitment plan, well, you type in either A, there is no plan, B, there's sort of a plan, or C, we have a complete and clear plan. Let's just see what everybody's experiencing right now. So you're probably reading along just like I am, and you're seeing that Ellen was really spot on. Every campus is unique, but generally speaking, there is not a wealth of information with absolute certainty and clarity about what's being done on hardly any campuses at this point. Scott, we anticipate that there will be added clarity over the next couple of weeks, mostly because we're going to run out of time and people are going to have to make a decision. But anyone who's told you they've made a firm decision at this point, I'd also like everyone on this call to hear that there's a lot of space between June and the middle of August, that depending on what happens with this virus and locally what that means in your community and on your campus, everything that was an absolute plan, if you're in that camp, could quickly become, nope, just kidding, we're actually going to go the other direction. So we've said, Scott, for a while that contingency planning is the most responsible thing to do right now. Have at least 3 or 4 scenarios that range from 100% virtual online, some kind of a hybrid, through, okay, we're actually going to do something that looks a little more traditional, even though we know, and again, I'll ask everyone to listen carefully, there is absolutely no such thing in 2020 as doing recruitment the same way we did it in 2019. So even if the calendar is the same, I'd just like everyone to hear it 100% will not be the same as last year. Cool.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So it's interesting. I think the word of the last 3 months has been contingency, right? So it's funny. We've been talking about contingencies in terms of okay, when we go back, if we go back, how many folks we can have back in our houses, and then now we're thinking about our contingencies in terms of how we bring in new members. So that is definitely the word of the day. So thanks for sharing all that. Let's next question we want to throw out is, for campuses that are permitting in-house recruitment activities, what is that going to look like? You just shared with us, we know it's going to look different. It's not going to look the same, but for those that are actually going to allow it, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, this is a great question, Scott, because I think that as a house board member, you need to be looking at 2 things. What does recruitment look like for potential members inside your facility? And what does virtual recruitment look like inside your facility for just your in-house members? How are you going to accommodate in-house members during recruitment as well? Meaning all the way down from, is your internet stable enough to host these video conversations? How many people are doing that in one space? Are there going to be virtual house tours that are going to be taking place where there's going to be needing to have people and, a lot of people in one area? And most importantly, I think membership selection. So again, speaking to some of those women's organizations in your membership selection, what does that look like when, not 150 or 300 or even 50 or 25 members can get together and select the new member class, round by round? You have to have a contingency plan for what that looks like. And I would, tonight, after this call or tomorrow morning, send a note to your recruitment chair or your recruitment team and just ask them what their technology plan is. I think that there has to be some type of built-in technology to manage recruitment within the facility for your members. On the flip side, for potential members, I think that most universities are kind of trying to figure out what does a 10 to 20 potential member party look like inside a facility? How are you having entry and exit doors? What does the timing between events look like for cleaning and just kind of run through and things like that? Are you having, moving your furniture? I saw a question kind of come through earlier about furniture in bedrooms, but furniture in your rooms that are being met with during recruitment. Typically when you're sitting on a sofa or in two chairs next to each other having a conversation, when someone is greeting someone at the door and you're super close, what does that look like? I will say, just from experience, I am a house board president myself for a chapter, and we were just talking earlier this week saying, if everyone is wearing a mask and you're all dressing alike, how is anyone going to tell who you are? I know that's maybe not traditionally a role of the house board, but you play such an important part of managing the facility and what that flow looks like and keeping everyone safe. I think it's okay this year if you are asking those questions, if you are stepping in and being responsible and asking those questions. Josh, I'll throw it back to you to see if you have anything to add.
I think you nailed it. I think that's right.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about having that technology plan. We actually we had an internal staff development call last Friday, and half of it was spent just talking about Wi-Fi and working with our clients to make sure that they've got their technology plan in place, because it's not just about making sure that there's enough bandwidth to stream Netflix now. It is about let's make sure that we have the technical infrastructure in place so we can actually do these recruitment activities as well. So a great tip there. So thank you for that. All right, let's move on to the next one. So, yeah, Woody?
Scott, I just have a question here. I want to take the presenter role and raise my hand early. Just a question on this, though, that I know that we've heard a lot about right now, and I know some of our participants tonight are from the University of Missouri and some others where we heard this. And I'm just curious, because I know Josh and Ellen, you're working with a lot of organizations right now and being able to pivot and be prepared for the fall. Have you heard much about soft furniture? And that sounds really trivial in some of this, but what we're hearing, and it's creating a lot of angst, as you can imagine, for house corporations, especially if they've just finished a beautiful remodeling project and everything else, and taking out all these beautiful couches and soft chairs and window treatments and stuff. And I know for our men on the phone, this may not be as relevant, but it is something that we're hearing a little bit of angst about just recently, within the last days to a week or so. And I'm just curious if y'all have heard anything on your front about that and what is driving that, because we have not seen where that guidance is coming from, where that is necessary. Any insight on that at all from your lens?
Yeah, Woody, I would say, then the campus I am a house board member at, we have a weekly meeting, with all of the chapters on our campus, and I have not actually heard that come up. So I would love to learn a little bit more about that and kind of dig deeper in there. I think, though, what resonates with me is this: if that's such a concern and a big worry, why are we having recruitment in that facility or in that space? When there could be alternatives. And I think that that's the question our house board members need to go to our FSLs with, to say, here are our concerns and our worries. How can you help support me on this? How can you help support, keep my men, my women safe when these are my concerns about, specific furniture or specific, textiles or things within the house. I'm really trying to keep, and abide by these guidelines that we're sharing with our families. What can we do, or what do you recommend? And so that would be my advice, I guess, but I would love to dig a little bit deeper into that and learn more about what that concern is, how that concern kind of came up recently.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on what we hear, and anybody on this call, if you have information on your campus that you're hearing about that or what's driving it, please share it, because I know it's just something that is out there in the community right now that folks are dealing with. So sorry to interrupt there, Scott.
No, thank you. It's a great question. It's amazing the questions we're having to ask around recruitment right now. Who would have thunk it? We would have a conversation about window treatments and soft furniture when it comes to recruitment. So let's see. It's been really interesting, and I've heard you guys talk about this a time or two as we've shared on different webinars recently, and I'm just fascinated by it. Talk about what's happening online, and virtual recruitment is a thing. I would love for you to share with our audience what that is looking like right now and what are the things that they can do to support it.
Yeah, Scott, I think mostly for the Panhellenic side of recruitment, round one is typically looking like a 10-15 minute video that's being put together by each chapter. Potential members will be watching that video and then making their selections for the next round based on that. So really no conversation or communication between chapter members and potential members for that round one on most campuses. And then from a virtual style after that, house tour specifically, yes, in a video style, kind of a realtor, style video that just kind of walks through, your style of living and what that looks like, as well as having, preparations in regards to the financial transparency piece that NPC is very much promoting. Chapters be ready and prepared to share what that looks like. And so most of the virtual type conversation pieces that we're hearing is going to happen through Zoom. And so most campuses have Zoom accounts that they are, either each student has capability to log into, and that's kind of how they're being done. And so my guess is that most of those virtual experiences will happen inside the rooms or inside kind of a larger living space that chapter members will kind of come in and out of different rooms and have conversations and be prepared to ask questions. So I think the biggest things that house boards can probably be prepared for are, what is that? How are we taking care of our members during that time? So when we took care of them during a recruitment period that, was very hyped up and in person, and they were very, that adrenaline kind of pushed them through that whole day, that's a completely different wellness experience virtually. And so the Zoom fatigue kind of that we're hearing now certainly is being accommodated, but how can you as a house board take care of your chapter members during that time, whether it be, with food service, with breaks, with, quiet hours or things like that, that can really help them, get them in the recruitment mode, but also help them kind of throughout the day and what that looks like, whether there's special things that you're doing kind of throughout the day as well.
Love that. Josh, you have anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I do. I actually have a gift for everybody. And so if you want to look back in that chat window, I am off to the complete guide to virtual recruitment. And it is indeed complete. And there's a lot of information in there. So again, I would encourage you to share that with anybody on your team that that even gets within arm's length or maybe 6 feet of recruitment, so to speak. So I hope that's helpful for everybody. I will share this. This might be helpful for everyone to hear. Fall recruitment started 8 weeks ago. Just let that simmer here for a second. I see a lot of names in the group that I think I'm familiar with, or people that announce themselves as supporting the sorority community. So I'll reference the NPC task force, right? The NPC has been an advocate for lowering barriers. And things in the past that we would have said were out of bounds are no longer out of bounds. Positive Panhellenic contact is a real thing. And best believe there are men's groups and women's groups that all summer long are doing virtual recruitment. And on the men's side, that looks often like a very aggressive virtual recruitment. And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean that in a proactive way. Summer scholarships, local home visits, things that maybe were normal in Nebraska, Iowa State, Washington, parts of Texas are now becoming a little more normalized in the Northeast or in other parts of the West Coast or even in the SEC. So I want you all to hear this. Your undergraduates are very capable of working social media and virtual communication. They've been doing it anyway. But in the past, we've pumped the brakes and put up barriers. Now that those barriers are going down, we need to let them know they have permission to be able to make relationships, get to know people, and do it in an appropriate way. That's what virtual recruitment looks like this summer. Waiting until school starts is a bad strategy, in my opinion.
Love it. Love all of that. Yeah, I love that, when we talk a lot about this is what a great opportunity this is for us to reinvent ourselves. When we talk about innovation, this is a prime example of why, this COVID-19 could actually turn out to be the best thing that's ever happened to us from a recruitment perspective. That it's making us do things differently. We're actually having to have conversations and grow through relationships as opposed to our grandiose house or our furnishings and whatnot. I just think this could be actually a really wonderful thing that happens to us from a recruitment perspective. So thanks for sharing all that. Last question for you, and you just kind of, this is your chat was actually a wonderful segue. So talk a little bit about some of the resources that are available for chapters that they really should be taking advantage of as they prepare for the fall, and that we should be taking advantage of as advisors and who are coaching them.
Yeah, Josh, any more free gifts for the chat?
I do. I'm typing it up right now.
Okay. Well, as you do that, I will just kind of allude to Scott. I think that, as far as resources are available for chapters I think it's really important to, lean on your fellow chapters within your community, other house boards that you can maybe connect through your national organization to kind of think about the plans that they're making. Let them share resources together. I know the community that I am with, we have a Google Drive where every chapter can get access to kind of our plans, our agendas that we're making, policies that we're making, so we can all kind of be this united front and really talk about, what is the whole community doing together to take advantage of, to prepare specifically for the fall. Josh, you want to, let's talk about your resource.
Yeah, so if you ever just wished you could get online and get all the answers in 2 or 3 hours, like somebody just take me through a crash course on how to be a recruitment advisor, or imagine if an undergraduate could be a certified recruiter. I've got great news and spirit fingers. If you look in the chat window, there's your link. So I hope everybody enjoys that as well. That's a great new resource from the Fired Up team that I'm happy to share with y'all here. So lots more free resources on the Fired Up website that, of course, I'd encourage you to check out, and I would love it if y'all would follow social media channels, so that when we do continue to push free resources, that you're among the first to get them, so that you can share them with your entire team.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. I just have to say, just as a recovering two-time recruitment chairman, as an undergrad, I'm just it's funny. I'm so grateful for the work that that Fired Up does, because man, I would have loved to have had them when I was in school. And I've joked with Josh. I was like, wow, you started the company that I really wish I would have started 25 or 30 years ago. So so grateful for all of our industry partners, because I think, and Woody and I have talked about this a number of times, it's been really wonderful to watch how our community has rallied to create resources and how generous people have been with providing them, because we are all in this together. And just all these resources that Josh and Ellen just made available to you, that's another great example of how we've got to rally together. We've got to lean into each other. And it's about all of us. It's not about just me and Beta Theta Pi or you and your organization. It is about all of us getting through this together. So Ellen and Josh, thank you so very much for being with us tonight. And just so grateful that you decided to spend some time with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Christina, what are you seeing over in the chat room? Are you seeing any outstanding questions we haven't covered yet that we can cover in? Actually, if we could take a time machine and go back 5 minutes and to cover them in 2 minutes, but we're going to wrap shortly if there's not anything outstanding that's terribly pressing. So
there were just two really quick things. One was, is there a template for the wellness pledge that we
Yeah,
could
if you go
share?
to our website, it is out there. I think it may be under the operations tab, but MJ Insurance had provided one that they had put together with Stacia on their team, who's an attorney, that gives you some of those pieces. But I'd also encourage you to check with your organization and chapter services team, because they definitely, a lot of organizations are working on it, but there is a template out there. Should be easy to find on MJ's insurance resource page for COVID-19 or within ours. And if you can't find it, reach out to me or Scott, and we'll be happy to forward it to you.
perfect. Christina, you see anything else?
I was just gonna say, I can drop the link for that in the chat also for those that might be interested in that. If you hang on just a minute. And then the last thing was, I know, Scott, that you mentioned that we would be getting to the layout for the bedrooms, but also just wanted to bring to Woody's attention that someone was asking about the other furniture in the bedrooms, such as the desks. And
Yeah.
what does that look like as far as social distancing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because most of it has been related to the bed, because if they're sleeping there for 8 hours at a time, breathing on each other, that's the real concern. Because right now, again, I am certainly not a scientist or a doctor by any stretch of the imagination. I've just listened to this stuff ad nauseum for 4 or 5 months. But what we're hearing right now, and the reason why masks are being so promoted and encouraged, is because the most common way it's being spread is when we're within 6 feet or less of folks for an extended period of time, and those droplets have an opportunity to pass from person to person. So the theory or thought process of someone sleeping in a bed face to face at each other, even less than 6 feet apart, which we do have in some situations of cold dorms and some bedrooms, we need not to have that happen. I've not seen a lot of guidance like your desks need to be 6 feet apart or whatever. I think the guidance is, as much as we can provide within reason of social distancing, we need to, and there's just some things we're not going to be able to do as it relates to the desks. The beds are the priority because of the extended period of time that they may sitting there. And by and large, what we see while we do provide desks and chairs, most of the time we're studying somewhere in the house, we're studying on our bed, we're out and about, and not in like the 1950s where you had the picture that Patrick Alderdice always likes to show in his presentations of the one person sitting there at a desk working. But that's a great point and a great question. And I think at this standpoint, it's whatever reasonable we can do to provide it. We've also seen where those desks have been positioned where you may not be able to get that 6 feet between the bed, and we're using that as a barrier just between the faces at night. So we've seen some of that creativity as well.
Woody, there was one last.
Okay, and then we did have one. Yeah. You can go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Christina. There's one last question there. Sorry to jump on your words there, Christina, my bad. Dimitri is asking about if there's any guidance in terms of non-living members, how they can use the chapter house. Is there going to be any recommendations, or is that all going to be locally driven in terms of what the university or local authorities are going to be recommending? So what are you hearing in terms of guidance on non-living members and how they use the chapter house? Can they come over to study, eat, watch TV?
Yeah, so we know that, again, from the university standpoint, there are going to be recommendations, and their recommendations are going to be to limit any visitors to your facility that do not live in it. They recognize, as do your organizations, that those out-of-house members, many of which who are paying fees to live in the facility or to utilize the facility, an out-of-house fee, if you will, some of it could be food related, that would like access to their chapter house. And I know many organizations are looking at that and tackling it. And I would say we're going to land in the middle. And I think a reasonable recommendation is we're probably not, unless we can achieve social distancing within our chapter room at the facility, they're going to encourage you to do meetings online or in big halls if you can rent it on universities where people can spread out. But we're going to have limited events to no events at the facility.
And what he just cut out on us. So what he was just saying was we're going to have limited events in the facility. So it's going to vary from campus to campus is what we're seeing. So sorry, I tried to finish your answer there for you, Woody. Your voice cut out on us. So hey,
can you hear me?
Now we hear you beautifully. So well, let's wrap up here. We're a little bit past our time here. We usually try to cut this off before between the top of the hour and 9:15, but just a couple of opportunities we want to make you aware of coming up. Our next time together will be July the 9th. We'll be taking next week off, and that we're going to be going through that move-in makeover session we talked a little bit about earlier. We'll be doing that session for house directors tomorrow, but for all of you who are either a campus professional or a volunteer or or work on a campus, that's going to be set up for you on the 9th. And then on the 23rd, we're actually going to be talking about social distancing. How do we do that in our dining rooms? How do we do that in our common spaces? So those are the 2 sessions that are coming up. And with that being said, just 3 words to leave you with here: engage, innovate, and execute. We've got to engage with each other. We've got to engage with our students. We've got to engage with our campuses. We need everybody singing from the same sheet of music. We can all, again, none of us know as much as all of us. We've got to learn and engage with each other so we can innovate and we can execute at a really, really high level. We need to do all 3 of those things right now, more so than we've ever done them before at any other time in this journey called fraternity, which began back in 1776. So with all that being said, until the next time we're together, I want to encourage you to stay in touch. Josh and Ellen, I've got their contact information up on the screen now. They've been extraordinarily generous with their expertise and their resources, and I'm sure they would love to hear from you afterwards and be open to answering any additional questions. So please reach out to them if you have a question on recruitment. And if you have a question about the facility and what we can expect to see, how we can support the facility, make sure it's ready for fall move-in, please feel free to reach out to Steve, Woody, or myself, and we will get back to you at our first opportunity. And in the meantime, if you just need resources, whether that's insurance related or kitchen management related, you name it, please hop over to the CSL Housing Hub. That is in the COVID-19 section of our website. You can find it all there, along with that 90-day roadmap that we talked about the last time we were together. So with all that being said, I'll just say thanks again for making some time for us tonight. We're so grateful for everything that you do, for doing work that matters, especially right now. So again, thanks for making time with us for us tonight. Great having you with us, and we'll see you next time at House and Home. Everybody.